All to play for in Abu Dhabi for the Kings 11 Punjab and the Rajasthan Royals, two teams that have had such a dramatic 2020 edition of the tournament. They gave us the game of the tournament, arguably, very early on in Sharjah, where Rahul Tewatia did his thing. And since then, so much has happened. Rajasthan have gone up and down. They must win both games if they want to give themselves the best chance of the playoffs. Punjab have won 5 on the trot. No team has won 6 on the trot this season. Will Punjab become the first? The IPL turns 50. It's match number 50. Either side of 50 are Akash Chopra and Tom Moody. It's a pleasure to welcome them on Whirlpool Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Dell. Last night's result has excited a lot of us, Akash, but in particular, perhaps, these two teams, all to play for today.
Rajasthan, of course, they wanted KKR to lose yesterday. Kings 11 Punjab, they could still do with KKR winning because 16 is something that you can reach. Now Kolkata can't reach 16. KXIP's fortunes are in their hands. Of course, they're doing the unthinkable. And just to think of it, first 7 games, you win 1. After that, with 2 games in hand, you are actually in a position to finish at number 2. If everything falls in place, they could be the second team on the points table. So this is how dramatic this turnaround has been. So I don't think they were worried about what Kolkata is doing against Chennai Super Kings. Rajasthan, of course, were praying that Chennai somehow pips them to the post and therefore keeps Rajasthan alive.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happened. Rajasthan have the chance against Punjab. Now, I'd hate to be a party pooper for Punjab, Tom, but they're due a loss, aren't they?
It's one of those untidy moments, isn't it? You know that you've had a good run, but it's interesting when you're actually in that space, when you're winning consecutively, the last thing that is on your mind as a team and as a support staff is losing. You're always thinking of the solution to how you can continue to move forward against a solution to how you can rebalance the side to reignite some sort of momentum. These guys have got some serious momentum. They're not thinking about losing. They're just thinking purely about how we can continue to, knock sides over that get in our way.
If you could speculate, I'd be very curious to know what could be the mood in the Punjab camp for a team that seems so down and out, and now all of a sudden, this is where they find themselves on a red-hot streak, as against maybe, say, a Delhi Capitals, where you thought, they're going to cruise into the playoffs, and they've had 3 defeats in a row. All of a sudden, every game's a must-win game. Can you imagine what Punjab would be feeling through? Can you put words to it?
Yeah. Look, it's interesting because I have actually thought about this, and to me, there's a couple of factors. One is the support staff, with Anil Kumbale as head coach and Andy Flower as assistant coach, 2 vastly experienced cricketers, coaches, mentors, you name it, they've done it. So when you are absolutely down on the canvas, you've got some seriously good people off the field keeping things relatively calm. The second major factor is the Gale factor. And not so much Chris Gale, the cricketer, the left-hander that goes out there and smacks it around the park. This is a different Chris Gale. This is a Chris Gale where his calmness, his jovial personality just has kept things alight. He's kept the flame alight during those difficult times. And once you get that little luck of turn of luck, you find that it's like catching a bushfire catching ahead of itself, and it's uncontrollable. So I think those 2 factors, with Gale just keeping that flame alight, even though they were down and out, and they'd lost a couple of tough games, and also the experience of that support staff.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that, because I wanted to discuss that more in detail, Akash. Chris Gale is the invincible of this Punjab side. Ever since he came into the team on the 15th of October against Bangalore, they've only been winning. That's when the winning streak started. You'd think Gale is someone who might be reminding or cracking jokes on that in the dressing room too. But he has been a significant factor, not just as the personality, but we're seeing Gale run hard between the wickets. We're seeing him do things we thought he wouldn't do at this stage of his career.
See, with Chris Gale and the importance of Chris Gale, the intimidation that he brings to the table, and yes, what you've said is absolutely correct. I've been in a dressing room with Chris Gale, and if he's there and if he is in the right kind of space and mood, he will lift everyone around him. But my understanding is that since he's such a towering figure, we tend to just see him and ignore a lot of other things that have changed in that camp, and that's perhaps obvious as well. I think it's the bowling. It's the
Yes.
bowling that has the way they have played. Whether you talk about that super over when only 5 runs had to be defended, Shami bowled 6 perfect Yorkers. You see Arshdeep bowling, you see Chris Jordan bowling. They've been conceding in the first half of the tournament. They were conceding on an average about 54 runs in 3 overs, 18th, 19th, and 20th. And now that has changed to an extent that they've been able to defend 126. They won that game by 12 runs. So that the bowling has come to the fore. While of course, a lot of credit is due and should be rightly given to the coaching staff, and I love them to bits. But the fact also is that they were guilty of not understanding, not acknowledging, or rather knowing what their best 11 was. Because there was one team. There were only two teams actually, teams that were changing, and in fact, they are up against each other tonight. They were making wholesale changes after every single game, and you wouldn't understand why. Because you want some amount of continuity, and they were not injury-based changes; they were just changes, random changes. Murugan Ashwin was dropped, then Chris Jordan had one bad game; he was dropped. Nisham comes in, goes out. Sheldon Cottle comes in, goes out. They just kept chopping and changing, and it is never a good thing. I may want to remind everyone that Karun Nair was actually playing. There was Sarfaraz Khan who was getting opportunities, and they didn't really do anything badly. It's just that they're out now and in the wilderness. So I thought they were quite unpredictable with regards to their team selection. That has stabilized. Of course, the bowling would be the other big plus that has changed it around.
Okay, that's a good point. The bowling has come together. We've seen a couple of games now where there's been a collective performance, and who would have thought a bowling attack of Shami, Jordan, the two leg spinners Bishnoi and Ashwin and Arshdeep Singh would be one of the best bowling attacks as the tournament gets deeper and deeper, or at least one of the better ones. Tom, can you understand that if you're losing games, it only gives you reason more to keep changing, or is it a better late than never situation, or is it one that you think had Kings 11 identified this balance earlier, they could have been sitting in contention for a top 2 spot?
Yeah, look, it happens so often in franchise cricket where once you're losing, you have all these external pressures that can create a knee-jerk reaction with regards to selection. So a lot of times the selection can be out of the management's control, and there are other strings that are at play that are making them.
We'll wait for your autobiography for that one. Yep.
But that is the art of management in franchise cricket, is making sure that you're managing upwards as much as you're managing downwards, and you're trying to create a calm and a seamless environment for the players to perform without sort of fearing failure. So I see that as one of the reasons there's high traffic during selection, during times where teams are struggling to win. The fact that the bowl, Akash makes a really good point, that their bowling has been a very important part of their resurgence. But I think the bowling also needs the batting and the fielding to play its hand. I still would quite honestly say they're far from having the best bowling attack in the competition. I think their bowling attack is modest, but they're getting 3 components of their game together on the night, and they've done it 5 games in a row. The question is, can they continue to do that to qualify and then go further in the finals? We're yet to see those chapters.
All right, let's see how long this streak goes on now. And they've got a team that have plenty to play for. They've also got a team that's won the toss now. So Rajasthan Royals have done all right. They're going to have a chase like they did against the Mumbai Indians in Abu Dhabi a couple of nights back when they arguably played their best game of the season. So let's look at the impact of that. One change for the Royals. They've brought in the pace of Varun Aaron for Ankit Rajput, who after a few slightly creative field settings in that last game has decided that he doesn't want to play, or it's the franchise that's decided. They want the pace of Varun Aaron. Steve Smith makes an interesting observation, Akash. He says, we wanted Varun Aaron in a bit of extra pace. He just mentioned that he was injured, and maybe that's why he didn't play in spite of having featured just on one game earlier this season. What does he bring for Ankit Rajput to this team, according to you?
Well, see, they are still in search of that the pace bowling attack that can support Jofra Archer. It's very simple because Jofra, on one hand, is conceding about 6.5 runs and over 17 odd wickets in front of his name, and the remaining fast bowling department is conceding about 10 and a half, nearly 11 runs and over. And they picked as many wickets collectively. So you know that there is one Jofra and then there is obviously nobody. So they're just collection of bowlers. They're juggling them around, whether it's Jaydev Unadkat one day, Varun Aaron the other day. Then you've got Ankit Rajput who comes and plays. Karthik Tyagi has somehow cemented his place somewhat, but not necessarily in the right phases of the game. He doesn't get those overs all the time. And he's also expensive from time to time. He's just a young kid, 19, 20. So Varun Aaron, you would assume that, of course, extra pace could be a friend, could be a foe. It's just that he's played more cricket. He's an India cricketer. So when you pick an India cricketer at the auctions, you end up paying a little more than what you would pay for a young greenhorn. But you also expect some amount of consistency and just expecting, or rather knowing what to expect. With a young kid, you may not know what you'll get. With Varun Aaron, you'll assume that this is what he brings to the table, and if he gets it right, the pace that is his friend on most days could actually yield a couple of wickets.
All right. Now, on that point, we know that Jofra Archer has been brilliant, Tom, and the rest of the Rajasthan bowling, what they lack, like Akash says, is perhaps more strike bowlers. How can you find that suddenly towards the end of the tournament? Can you upgrade a performance of a Karthik Tyagi who's shown promise? How do you take him to the next level? Because you need at least one or two bowlers to strike along with Jofra, you think?
Yeah, you do, and I don't think that just happens overnight. I think you're hoping that a Tyagi or an Ashwin or Bishnoi, whoever it is, puts in a match-winning performance. I think at the end of the day, both these teams have probably got the two weakest bowling attacks in the tournament. Yes, Jofra Archer is one of the best bowlers in the tournament, but just goes to show that you need 5 good bowlers to be watertight in going into the pointy end of the season. So I don't see there's any magic wand that can be waved and suddenly we've got a watertight attack that suddenly can boss the power play overs and take wickets, be able to hold and control in those middle overs, and then at the end of the innings be able to be ruthlessly defensive with your bowling tactics. I don't see neither of these teams having the depth and the diversity in their bowling attack to be able to sort of walk into any contest against any opponent in any conditions and say, yeah, we feel comfortable here because we've got our options sorted here, we've got our matchups sorted, but we've also got the bookends of the game sorted out where we're taking wickets up front and we know we can close the game at the end regardless.
From your experience, Tom, does the senior strike bowler have a role to play? In this case, of Jofra Archer, in Punjab's case, of Mohammad Shami, and at times do you expect them to be the bowling captain, the bowling mentor to the rest? I say that knowing that Jofra Archer himself is quite young and very early into his international career too. Does he have a role to play?
Yeah, he does. But again, it depends on the personality. Jofra Archer, I've worked with Jofra and he's quite a reserved, quiet type of guy. He's not a big character. He's not a big personality. He's a big personality when he's got a cricket ball in his hand and he's running in at you. But apart from that, you can't ask them to step up into roles that they're not natural. That's not natural for them. Where he will lead is by example, which he has done. Where Mohammad Shami is leading is by example. To me, he's been the glue for Kings 11 with regards to bringing that attack together. He's been Mr. Consistent throughout. He's played certain roles for Punjab and executed them really well. We wouldn't have thought that Mohammad Shami would be a reliable finisher. But he has stepped up to the plate and actually not only taken wickets in the power play, but he's been a dependable bowler at the back end of the innings. There was question marks at the start of the tournament to whether he could do that. Well, he's shown us all that, yes, he can do that, and he has learnt a lot over his IPL career. But, I don't think you can ask players to step out of their own natural strengths and character to suddenly say, well, I'm going to take control of this attack. Everyone needs to take control and take responsibility. But the most important thing is there needs to be that. It's the same with the batting order. With the bowling group, there needs to be that role clarity. Everyone needs to understand exactly, what their role is, when they're expected to bowl, and who their particular matchups are, and be well prepared.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up, Akash, when Tom makes a point on personalities. If you remember an Ashish Nehra or a Zaid Khan on the field, you see them talk to a lot of young bowlers. You see it with Lasith Malinga. Does it become about the personality of the individual? Like Tom says, a Jofra Archer may not be able to sort of bring the best out of a Karthik Tyagi, but that may not be his role. But you know where I'm coming from. Sometimes there are bowling captains and they take responsibility.
See, they may obviously want to take responsibility. Everybody, one, like Tom says, is not cut out for it. And two, T20 is too fast a game, in my opinion. You can't really spoon feed because you have to ought to react to a situation. When you start your run up and halfway through, you see the guy actually moving about. Now you have to think on your feet and react to that situation. T20, it happens a lot more in T20. It happens the least in Test match cricket. You can actually plot a dismissal. You can continuously bowl a certain line length. One day is closer to Test cricket in that respect. But in a T20 game, you have to be very dynamic. And when you're talking dynamic bowling, you got to have your own plans, execution, everything spot on. If it's not, you're up against some quality batsmen and they'll take you apart. One over can cost you the entire tournament with regards to your own confidence. So no matter what Jofra would want to do, the fact is, in a matter of a season, I don't think there is any bowler in the tournament who can convert a decent bowler into a match-winning one at this level in the IPL.
All right. Now, we're talking about bowlers so much, but Abu Dhabi gave 400 runs away. So one thing we can count on is if we do get a lot of runs, it should be a fun conversation because these two teams have given us a run fest in the previous encounter. What about Punjab's team? No changes. And maybe that's a good thing for a team that's winning. But you would have still, if you're a Punjab fan, wanted one change. Akash, you would have wanted to see Mayank Agarwal back. And of course, we don't have the sort of regularity in updates from franchises anymore on injuries. But it seems, it seems amiss that Mayank is out for this long. Mandeep Singh's done a job all right. They'd love to have Mayank as they really get into the business end of these last few games, wouldn't they?
Yeah. It's slightly troublesome because you wanted him to be there. He was the aggressor of the two in the opening combination, KL Rahul, Mayank Agarwal. Mayank was the one who was actually going after the bowlers who looked like selfless in every single inning that he's played. And that is the kind of impetus you want with KL Rahul, who's got the ability to grind. He has the ability to up the ante. He's a quality player. But then he comes to his own if Mayank Agarwal is there at the other end and is at his most dangerous best because the moment Mayank goes, there is KL Rahul who takes off. And now with Mandeep getting the runs, I thought if Mayank is available, then there is another change that could have been possible. Get in Mayank, get rid of maybe Maxwell, get in Mujib, and you further strengthen your bowling without really sacrificing, compromising your batting because your batting will be taken care of by the two openers, Mandeep, Chris Gill, Nicholas Puran, Deepak Hooda. So just one change because Maxwell as a batsman is not contributing. He's giving you a few overs, but that's not his primary responsibility. You would rather have another bowler, Mujib or a Hardus Willowen or maybe Sheldon Cottrell because that is, we all understand that is their weaker suit. When you talk about KXIT's bowling, it's not the best in the world. It's done all right, but it is not the best.
In this streak, Tom, that Punjab have managed, if you keep that double super over, that bizarre game aside, they've chased every game but for the one against the Sunrisers where you'd think ideally if Sunrisers would have just kept their head, they should have won. So batting first seems to be perhaps a slightly bigger challenge for this Punjab side. And now there's no Mayank Agarwal. Mandeep Singh also has taken his time in these two innings that he's got going. What can we expect from KL Rahul? And, it's the question we keep asking. What sort of approach can we expect from him?
Look, it's interesting because across, many platforms, whether it be the written media or whether it's social media, whatever it is, I just, for me, KL Rahul gets unnecessarily criticised.
Yeah.
What does he have to do for people to say, hey, listen, well played, you're doing a great job. And oh, by the way, you're captaining for the first time this year. You're managing that well too. You've managed to respond really well as a captain after a difficult start. Where is that coming from? Where isn't it? Why isn't it coming? That's my point. I just think at times, there's been so much focus around his strike rate and not so much his runs that he is scoring. Yes, there's been a few times that he, has been a bit slower. Yes, Mayank Agarwal has outscored him a few times as in strike rate, but big deal, I don't think it's been a major issue. it's not like he's dragging the chain to the point where he's not even in the top 10 run scorers of the tournament. This guy's sitting on top. I don't really understand. I'd love people to explain it to me better, because I don't understand why he's getting this criticism.
Akash?
I think he's paying a price for his own success, because when you see KL Rahul, you assume, you set lofty standards that here is a guy who can actually score 132 not out in 69 balls. He can actually tear bowling attacks apart. So every time he doesn't do that, I'm not his critique. I actually like him. I really love the way he bats and what he brings to the table. And on this platform, I've said it as much a few times. But I think that's the only issue, that people start comparing him with his own best self. But best self is not required necessary in every single game, and that's what I think Tom was alluding to, that on some days 130 strike rate is absolutely fine, par for the course. And you also have to see what is happening with the lower order. At times, when you know that there is a Maxwell who's not firing, there is Deepak Hooda has not got enough games. As a captain, as an opener with the ability to bat deep into the innings, you would want to assume that role. Sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. I think there's one game where he was criticized, and perhaps rightly so as well, that they didn't close the game. They were not closing games and Rahul was still there. So I think that's one fair criticism. If you're there playing as an opener, you're chasing a modest total, even if it's not modest. So let's say if you need, say, 20 in, or rather 15 in the last 2 overs, score the bulk of those runs in the 19th over and don't leave it till the 20th. They've done that a few times and they've been on the wrong side of the result. So that's the only thing that you would hold against him. Otherwise, I think he's been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, yes, Tom, please.
Just the one thing I was going to add to that is that what people have got to understand, and I know both you learned gentlemen do understand this, but what people have got to understand is that, scoring runs, it's not the same every day, because circumstances are different, surfaces are different, bowlers are different for whatever reason. And Akash, you could relate to this. Some days you pick up your bat and you think, wow, this belongs to me, and you middle every single ball and you're away and you think, well, gosh, I wish it felt like this every day. And there's other days that you hit the field, and you think, my God, what am I doing differently from the day before? So, that is the beauty of the game. There's no one that is absolutely perfect. And it's those players that I believe that still score runs, which KL Rahul does, even during those little times they're not feeling absolutely right. There's a few little chinks in the armour, but they don't give it away. They still manage to forge their way through to battle to get, and he hardly battles the way he bats, but they still manage to score the volume of runs that's required, but maybe at a slightly less strike rate.
Yeah, we take that with you entirely. I mean, Akash makes a good point, right? He's been so successful that we automatically increase our expectation of KL Rahul, and he hardly ever plays an ugly inning. So even if he's batting at a strike rate of 110, you think he's hitting it so well that you want to go harder. But I take Tom's point entirely. I guess what we do want to know is that last game, when you know that Rajasthan suddenly are now capable of chasing 200 against one of the best bowling attacks in the tournament, the Mumbai Indians. So now what's the approach? Is it suddenly, Tom, all right, you know what? We know our bowling's been doing well, but yeah, we're real about it. They could also go the distance on the night. And Rajasthan are suddenly capable of chasing 200 against good bowling attack. Do we need 190? Do we need 200? Is that what Punjab needs today, Tom?
Well, if they're thinking that way, it's a big mistake. Every day is a different day. Yes, Rajasthan have got it right one game in the tournament, and they played exceptionally well. But what the Kings 11 must do is assess this game as it unfolds and be smart enough and nimble enough to make sure they're in a position to maximise their total on that surface. Now, that surface may be a 160 surface or it may be a 200 surface. We don't know this yet. Look, at the pitch inspection, they're saying Danny Morrison and Darren Ganga, I think, were at the pitch report. They're saying that, it looks a very good batting surface with a short side, or maybe 200 plus is required, but we don't know whether the ball's going to suddenly keep a little bit lower or it's going to get slower in the back 10 overs of the innings. So all those things need to be smartly adjusted to as your innings unfold, so you absolutely maximise your total. The last thing you need to do is come out of the blocks thinking we need 200 plus here because these guys are in form, and then fall over and make 130.
I missed that pitch report because I was watching the Hindi pitch report, and it takes me to a fascinating subject of whether cricketers or former cricketers, when they read pitches, do they actually read it differently at times? Because I saw Ajit Agarkar and Deep Das Gupta on the Hindi feed, Akash, with Ajit saying, this could hold up a bit. Maybe 170 could be a winning score on this. So I'm very curious to know whether you cricketers tend to read pitches differently. You all have done enough. You've done enough pitch reports. Tell me that.
Honestly speaking, we all believe and behave as if we know. Honestly, and swear to God, none of us actually can, with a lot of certainty, say that this is what this pitch is going to behave like. And just actually, you could always just go back to the pitch report after the game. You'll find a discrepancy almost 9 out of 10 times. So this is what it is. I think there is dew that's been playing tricks, because first few weeks or 2-3 weeks there was a lot of dew, then 2 weeks there was no dew. Now suddenly it has made a reappearance, so you need to bear that in mind. But once again, don't think about what opposition can do. Bat in your hand, see the pitch, react to it, target 200, you'll end up with 160. So go along the what is desired and demand of that surface. Don't just go with a preconceived notion that I need to go there. You may not reach there at all. So I'm completely with Tom. Play by the ear, see how it's behaving, and then how your innings is progressing.
Okay, let's pick up this conversation in 20 overs time. So much to play for both these teams. They seem to be on a high. Rajasthan Royals, after beating Mumbai Indians. Punjab, we know they're red hot. Who can stop them? Will it be the Royals? We'll find out. There's plenty to play for. We'll pick up the conversation with Tom Moody and Akash Chopra on Whirlpool Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Dell.